Yes, sir. Yes, sir. 6 a.m. on a Wednesday morning. Chris McMonigle and Keith McPherson filling in for Boomer and Gio on this historic day as last night we witnessed history. Pete Alonso, the home run king of the New York Mets organization, a place that he has no desire playing anywhere else. Who loves being a Met more than Pete? What Met do the Met fans love more than Pete? Last night was a great night for the Met fan. They beat their nemesis, the Atlanta Braves. They keep on pounding. And Pete Alonso hits not one but two home runs to become the home run king of the New York Mets. How we doing, Keith?
Good morning.
Good
morning. Usually I hit that at midnight.
That's right. Little WFAN at night in the early morning.
I'm good, man. Last night was a get-right night for New York baseball. A lot of runs scored, home runs hit. And for the most part, a night where you could just sit back, relax, watch your team win, and feel good about where you are, at least after all the losing streak ending. And all we can hope is that more of this comes from what we got last night.
Well, yeah. I mean, listen, the win is obviously the most important thing for a team that's been floundering, lost 11-12, and playing a team that they just historically cannot beat. But last night was about Pete Alonso as he hits his 253rd home run in a moment in the game where early on, at least, it gets a little dicey later, and we'll get to what happens throughout the game. But early on, the vibes are good. They're up 3-1 as we're watching the highlight right now, and Pete Alonso with an opposite field laser over the right center field fence to make it 5-1. And you could just sense, the crowd. We had Rascona in here running the board yesterday. He was taking his son to the game. This is one of those moments. And Pete has become one of those guys, obviously, from the fan base calling for him at the beginning of his career when he was down in Vegas and they didn't want to call him up at the end of that season in 18. Then he comes up and he's this just mammoth figure. In 2019, his rookie season, 50 home runs, as clutch as you could be, arguably his best season as a Met that rookie season. And from that moment on, it became quite clear the connection that Pete built with this fan base, that Pete built with this team. They are his guy. And now, in the offseason, all the drama about the contract, the going back and forth, the owner who was there last night, who put out a tweet last night, who chose to be at this game last night against the Atlanta Braves to see this history possibly take place, and ultimately it did. But all the him getting booed at Met Day and everything about bringing back Pete, all of this was a moment the fan base has been craving. This is a moment that the fan base has been talking about for at least the last year. The idea that the greatest power hitter in the franchise's history completed that last night, and it's still kind of up in the air about his future as he's not under contract for next season. At least we don't think so. We all expect him to opt out. Last night was one of those moments where you get to celebrate yours. You get to celebrate a guy that you love, that you've been behind through the losing, through the winning, through the fun, through the sad times, through his home run derbies, everything. Pete Alonso is the New York Mets in many ways, even though we think Lindor might end up being the captain. But he's the guy. And watching him last night hit that home run, seeing the crowd reaction, watching them pound the Braves, it was as good a night you could have for a New York Mets fan.
Yeah, Pete Alonso is this younger generation's guy. He's the guy that they hope in years to come has his number 20 jersey retired up there and they get a Pete Alonso day. You talked about Amazing Day and how the fans kind of demanded that they bring him back. And It seems so far in the past, right? The offseason where he didn't have any offers, and there was talk about Vladdy Jr. being a Met, and even opening day with Vladdy Jr. coming to Queens and the fans applauding him and people thinking about, hey, we can get that guy. That guy's off the table. Like you just said, Pete Alonso, that is their guy. That is the polar bear. That's the face of the franchise. And after the losing streak, after getting swept, coming home, the owner tweeting out that he's going to be there, that the team hadn't been playing good, but kind of, rallying the troops, rallying the fan base, come out to Citi Field. Come see what happens tonight. Pete hit 2 home runs. Even the first ball he hit kind of gave you the feeling hey, he's locked in tonight. It's going to happen. I just think that for the Met fan last night, Alvarez 2 home runs. His boy Nimmo bailing them out. Of course they give you that little moment of, panic where Frank the Tank, I'm sure, crashed out, where even, Evan Roberts is tweeting about it. The Met fans are tweeting about, the Braves coming back. They give you that little bit of moment for the Boo Birds to come out in Citi Field to not believe, but then Brandon Nimmo hits the 3-run shot, and then the Mets absolutely pour it on, and you wake up this morning feeling good, and you haven't been able to feel good. It's funny, too, because it's now the 12th, and we keep going back to June 13th.
Yeah.
So people could literally put this in a box of 2 months, 2 months, 2 months. Well, the next 2 months is the most important.
Yeah, no, and you said it. And last night, huge win. All the stuff that we'll get into that. We'll get into the bunt by Lindor, which I think is arguably the biggest play of the game.
Yeah.
To get on base there with 2 outs, followed by the walk and the 3-run shot. But last night was definitely a cleansing moment. Right, the day off, leading into it, Met fans all over the place. This is where they get hot. This is where they turn it on against the lousy Atlanta Brave team. They get the home run, and it just set this thing off. Now, you mentioned the owner being there. We talked about it. And the future of Pete Alonso. And I look at it, and I've been skeptical. I have been. I've been skeptical about the future of Pete Alonso with the New York Mets. I felt that way last year. He had that down season where it really was, the numbers weren't awful, but he was very unimpactful. He didn't have that typical Pete season. He did in the clutch, he was terrible up until he hits the home run against Devin Williams. And he has the good playoff run with the playoff pumpkin and all that. And leading into the offseason, and it just felt like I wasn't sure, and I think there's a dynamic with the Mets right now between the two guys who are running this, the two faces of what the Mets are right now, the owner and Steve Cohen, and the general manager and president of baseball operations, David Stearns. And I still feel that I am curious how David Stearns feels about Pete Alonso as being a Met for the rest of his career. But you saw the owner there.
Yeah.
You saw the way this building reacts, and what other owner in sports has come in and tried to make more connection to the fan base? He comes in and immediately it's like, we're changing things. We're putting a statue of Tom Seaver. We're bringing back Old Timers Day. We're bringing back the black jerseys. We're doing all this stuff because I am one of you. How in the world can this guy allow Pete Alonso not to be a Met? How does he not step in? Even I've been skeptical of the idea of a 30-year-old first baseman and how they treated last offseason and what David Stearns would like when building a team. He's literally in Japan scouting a first baseman, third baseman. We just got that story that he's out scouting a Murakami out in Japan, who is a first baseman, third baseman, even playing a little bit outfield now, but primarily a first baseman for his career. And I just don't know how he feels, but watching the way this fan base has reacted to Pete and knowing Steve Cohen, there's no way he allows this guy to be anywhere else, right? He has to be a Met for his entire career.
You think that because of the money, right? You think this guy can buy everybody. He just bought Juan Soto for $765 million. Honestly, with David Stearns right now, David Stearns looking at Frankie Montas, who we found out yesterday, he's going to the bullpen.
Yeah.
I'd be looking at David Stearns right now saying, you don't just have the right to call every single thing. We're going to talk through this. Mm-hmm. And in talking through it, there's so much more to be seen. Let's see what Pete does the rest of the way. Let's see what this team does the rest of the way, because they're not good enough right now to even think about a world where Pete Alonso's not on the team, not in the lineup. And not just for his bat. He's played defense. He's had some shining defensive moments over the last couple weeks as well. The Mets are not good enough right now to even think about a life without Pete Alonso, to think about Munetaka Murakami, who a lot of Yankee fans have their eyes on. I understand that Stearns is out there in Japan. I understand the timing, too. Hey, you're not there for 253 night. But I just see the rest of the season playing out where Pete, in the beginning of the season was MVP.
Yeah.
If he continues to hit home runs, drive in runs, and carry this team, there's no way they can move on from him. And if you remember last year, he got back into the fans' good graces, obviously with the homer off of Devin Williams, and showing up in the postseason. So he's got to do that again in October to kind of lock himself in, I think.
Yeah, but that's my point. Does he? Does he have to do that? Did last night
I think
lock
so.
it? Does last night lock it?
Because the fans get loud.
I understand that, but look at how loud they were last night. Even if he's already had a great year. His OPS is as high as it's been in his career almost. He's right around 900. Right, early on in the season, he was as big a reason for their success and building the best record in baseball up until the infamous day of June 13th. And these moments and his ability to still hit home runs and what he's been, even if he is not the same player he was in the first couple months, even if he's, even if he's what he was the last couple months, if Pete Alonso opts out, can you do this to the fan base? Can you take this guy away from this fan base that is so connected to him? And he's now the leading franchise, the leader in the franchise in home runs. He's been their guy. Nobody loves it. Oozes out of him how much he loves being a Met. Even if the season isn't what we hope for or expect the rest of the way. I don't know if that even plays into it. It might be at the point where Pete Alonso is a Met for life, and that decision's been made. That's because I agree with you. If the decision is up in the air and David Stearns has a strong opinion on it and is allowed to voice an opinion on it to the owner, then I agree with you. It's up in the air. But is it at the point this owner in that game last night, sitting in the front row, watching that moment, watching the fan base reaction, knowing that we're talking about a guy who we could be chasing big-time numbers with down the stretch, knowing how much this fan base was dying for a statue of Tom Seaver? This is their guy. Has that decision already been made?
I mean, speaking of Seaver, they got over losing Seaver. They got over DeGrom. They got over Zach Wheeler.
They got over Darryl Strawberry.
It has to be a sell of, like, what's next? They have to have another option next. It has to be something that David Stearns can sell them on a future, because the future we're currently in with the Mets, the Met fan didn't know that this future would exist with Juan Soto and some of these other high-priced players. That's the only way they potentially get over it. But what I'm saying with we got to see what happens, it's what have you done for me lately? It's very much of like the fans are loud right now, of course, because selfishly, a lot of them went to that game, wanted that moment, saw it live, have it in their phones, and that's right now. But if Pete is terrible in the postseason or the rest of the way, they'll sour on him and they'll say, well, we kind of understand what you're saying. He's an aging first baseman, his body type. Oh, yeah, we could allocate funds elsewhere. We need pitching. Maybe we go spend there. I know they don't spend there, but maybe they do
right,
if they're trying to get the fan base to understand that we're moving away from Pete Alonso.
Yeah, I don't think there's a world where any Met fan would be okay with Pete. I don't care what happens from this point on. I don't think there's a world where you could get most. Like, listen, there's always the outliers, and a portion of the fan base hates everyone. Like, there's somebody who hates everybody. But I would think that at this point, like, to me, it's either it's up to the GM and he's not here, or the owner's already made the decision. Like, yeah. I don't think his play.
But nine months ago, that world did exist, because 9 months ago they were talking about Vladdy. They were talking about Vientos can play first base.
Yeah, I don't know. Not after last night, and not after all the flip flops going around. Not after all, as I'm watching the highlights. Not after so many home runs that they ran out of fireworks. But let's get to and we'll have some fun with that too.
We'll definitely talk about that one.
But let's get to the other thing you mentioned, Montas at the beginning of the game, because there actually is a Met team right now trying to actually get into the postseason. The Reds lost last night. They've won last night, so they've kept 2 games up on the Reds. There is a actual team here that needs to win games, and that's what was ultimately most important for this Met team last night. And there's still issues. Now, they opened the offense up, bunch of home runs. Obviously, the Nimmo home run was an absolute huge home run, preceded by the bunt and the walk from Lindor and Soto. But you start off the day finding out Montas is being sent to the bullpen. We're expecting one of the young kids to get called up. And then Clay Holmes, who has been ultimately for the year really good. And I would still say that even after last night. And I know the Met fans right now are down on him, but that was just an awful performance from him. He gives up the run early. Then they stake him with a 5-1 lead, and he can't get out of the 4th. As this Met team is about to go on a run, they play 22 games in the next 23 days. They have been desperate for innings out of their starting pitcher. He gets a 5-1 lead against the lousy Braves, and he can't get out of the 4th inning. Like, that is a performance that is just tough to take. Now, I have problems with leaving him in against Olsen, too. Like, the manager's part of this. But as we move along with this Met team, Montas is already out of the bullpen, out of the rotation into the bullpen. I don't know if they can do the same with Clay Holmes, but we know a kid's coming up. This starting rotation, even in last night's win, continues to be a problem for this Met team.
Yeah, Clay Holmes, I've seen that before. Clay Holmes can't struggle with the bottom of the order. Guys like Vidal, Brujan, you can't walk him. Nacho Alvarez, dude. This is a guy that is he's not a hitter at all. I think last night when he drove in his first RBI, I think I heard in the broadcast, Clay Holmes outlasts Frankie Montas as far as, coming to the Mets and not being thrown in the bullpen. All the conversation had been about, hey, Clay Holmes got to go to the bullpen. Frankie Montas is in the bullpen before Clay Holmes. Clay Holmes let everybody down. But you know what? The Make It Happen Mets weren't going to let everybody down, not on Pete's night. Not on a night where, history was made, where you need a win. Brandon Nimmo, I thought it was almost scripted how, Brandon Nimmo, that's Pete's guy. He's homegrown. That's his boy. Yep. Brandon Nimmo comes up.
Was on the base path, too, for the home run.
Yeah. And you know what? That's going to be on SNY. This is on Mets Classic for the rest of time. And everyone will remember Clay Holmes. Remember Clay Holmes giving up the lead. And also people are going to remember, let's not leave out Carlos Mendoza. Because there was a point in time there where it's like if this guy doesn't go deep in games.
Yeah.
You got to get Gregory Soto warm.
Yeah.
You got to get him up and running. I think I saw Evan tweet that Matt Olson versus Gregory Soto was 1 for 11. You can't let Clay. You can't let Clay face him when you know that, or maybe you don't know that, or maybe you're trying to. I don't know. You're trying to steal outs or get through the inning. But it all is well that ends well. But it was a bad look in that fourth inning.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough spot for a couple of reasons. Like, we talk about it, that they need to get innings out of their starting pitching, but you also can't just rely on a pitcher that clearly doesn't have it. Like, it's a little bit of today's baseball, which I know everyone's so hung up on, the amount of pitches guys are allowed to throw. It's partly that. It's mainly these guys haven't been good enough, and Clay Holmes last night is on the ropes, and me and Fleegs were talking about it. The problem I have with it, and watching the game, I had a problem with it, and I didn't even know Soto was 1 for 11 versus Soto at that time. The problem I have with it is that's going to be the last batter Clay Holmes faces anyway.
Yeah.
Like, even if he gets that out, are you bringing him back out for the fifth?
You can't.
After that, like, I don't think you are.
He was getting booed.
So if you're at the point where that's literally the last batter he's going to face, why would you not bring in a lefty to get him? I don't, and especially when you find out that he's 1 for 11 against him.
Yeah, that's the matchup.
I had a real problem with letting him face, but again, letting him face Olsen. But ultimately, they do come back and win. It was a huge night for the New York Mets, but. Even as they let you know, and the Yankees have done this too, and we'll get to the Yankees later, and we'll take your calls at 888-808-1019. Even in their wins, there are issues that are still harboring around these teams. There are still issues with the New York Mets that you look at. This rotation is still scary. The amount of innings they're giving you is still a problem. Frankie Montas and one starter being called up from the minors doesn't solve everything. And this offense, while explosive last night and something to be celebrated last night, and Alvarez and Nimmo coming out of his slump, and Alvarez really being pretty good since coming back from the injury. All that may be true, but it's still an offense that has struggled with runners in scoring position. Not a lot of nights like this, so that's what made it special. And there are still issues with this Met team. They've won, it's one win. They were on a 7-game losing streak. They were bound to win one. It was a great night and a lot of history being made, but there's still problems with this team. 888-808-1019. McMonigle and McPherson in for Boomer and Gio on this Wednesday morning.